Yes, hello. My name is Anneli Embe from Resource Center Vision in Sweden. I will talk about my study about motivation in inclusive art education. I work as an advisor in special education, supporting art teachers who have a student with visual impairment included in their ordinary peer groups. There is not very much research made on inclusive art education with students with blindness. Therefore, it was important to me to find out what gives children with blindness or severe visual impairment motivation in art studies, a subject that has a tradition to focus very much on the visual sense. The name of the study is actually a quotation from one of the students. Art does not have to be visual. One of the things I didn't know before the study was that when a student with visual impairment is included in the peer group, the teachers and the other children can get very inspired. One of the teachers told me that when she got a student with visual impairment, she and her students became much more creative, both in ideas and materials. But my study reveals that it wasn't always easy to plan an inclusive art education. Här. Där. Okej. Okej. Tack. Slide 2. The purpose with this study was to find out what can be motivating in art for children with visual impairment in regular classes. The participants in the study were 4 students with blindness or severe visual impairments in grades 7 to 9 and their art teachers. This was a qualitative study, and the method used was semi-structured interviews. All of the students used Braille as reading medium. One of the students had a visual acuity of 0.05. The 3 others had blindness with no light perception. All of the students with visual impairment in Sweden are included in mainstream education since 1986. The questions in the study were: what are the students' experiences of art with focus on motivation? And what are the teachers' ideas on lesson planning with focus on inclusive art education? Slide 3. The students told me about their memories from art studies. The students found it difficult to remember strictly visual information and tasks that contained only verbal descriptions. One student said about picture analysis that it had been interesting, but that he couldn't remember any such task. The only thing he remembered was that his assistant had given him a verbal description of a photograph that the student then got to analyze. The students remembered strictly visual knowledge as boring or completely meaningless. It was about photographing, color theory, and perspective drawing. One student said, "The tactile camera has not arrived yet." Another student, "If I had it my way, I would work with other tasks than color." One student said about perspective drawing, "To paint perspective and tasks based on the visual sense is just disturbing. Filmmaking could also be hard." Slide 4. The students had strong positive memories connected to multidisciplinary tasks dealing with difficult concepts and also of using molding material. Tasks with opportunities to make individual choices were also remembered positively. There was also a memory of feeling awkward when nothing was suitably adapted. Slide 5. One student remembered a multidisciplinary task from middle school. The theme of the task was the Middle Ages. Each student made a doll of wooden sticks. The dolls were then used as requisites in a play about the Middle Ages. The students worked individually on the creation of the dolls. The dolls were then used in a joint presentation at the same time as the students acquired knowledge of the Middle Ages. There were no visual requirements in the task. The same student also had a positive experience of creating a picture related to the concept of symmetry. The student cut out half of a shape in thick paper and then folded this shape to the side so it formed a symmetrical shape. The student got a tactile experience of a new concept, symmetry, that would otherwise have been difficult to access as it is usually mentioned together with visual phenomena. One student remembered the first time he came in contact with wiki sticks in preschool. Wiki sticks are strings dipped in wax. The strings can be pressed onto a piece of paper and be used as lines to illustrate images. It is also possible to create forms and figures with wiki sticks. Another student had positive experiences from a schoolwork with bridges in the community. The student had visited a bridge and explored it at the same time as the assistant described the bridge. Back in the classroom, the student got a model of a bridge to examine while the teacher told the class about bridges and their functions. The student got his own experience of the bridge with his whole body and all his senses. The sound and the smell of the place, the tactile qualities he could examine with his hand and his body by walking on and around the bridge. As the students got the concepts of the bridge qualities like function and form, surface and materials, he also got the perception of the neighborhood that he had not been aware of before. When the student then formed his own bridge model in clay, it became a symbol and a recollection of experiences for his memory. This same student also had a strong positive memory of working with African masks. In this case, the student got to examine a model of a mask while the teacher talked about the culture the mask was created in. The student told me that it had been interesting and great fun, and that it had given him knowledge of people in other cultures, how they do and how they think. This gave him a whole mental picture. Another student had a positive memory from high school of making a mask of his own face using plaster bandages. The strongest memory for one student was that she had experienced discomfort during many art lessons for several years, when nothing used to be adapted for her. During briefings, the teachers showed pictures without verbalizing them. The student had to magnify the pictures herself, which she found stressful. It felt meaningless and she just wanted to leave. After the teacher had received further training at the Resource Center Vision, she let the students make their own prints on t-shirts. For the student with visual impairment, this became a positive memory. The work went on for a whole semester, and the students made individual choices. The fact that the student could actually use the t-shirt and that others could see it made the task meaningful, according to the teacher. Slide 6. And now some differential data. One student enjoyed to paint with different colors. The student told me that he didn't really know why he liked it so much, but he said he liked to cover the entire picture with color. He perceived that his color painting had higher quality that would last. compared to something made with wiki sticks that used to fall off. The class had been working with color theory and tactile materials in color circles, and everybody was engaged in the activities. The student was very interested and had high competence in color theory. Generally, colors are very important to sighted people, but often quite abstract to those who do not see. The tactile circles made the concept of colors accessible to the student, and so he could be involved in the joint talks. The students shared each other's experiences. Everyone's opinion mattered. Maybe this increased the students' interest for the subject area. There was also a student who used to draw settings from her dreams. Slide 7. And so, summary and previous research. Motivational tasks and strong positive memories were characterized by the experience of gaining new knowledge. While modeling and designing, knowledge the student felt he could benefit from in general. Gaining new knowledge that had not been made accessible earlier developed a feeling of inclusion. The Norwegian researcher Klingenberg claims that knowledge of complex concepts in subjects like math facilitates for students with blindness to be involved in discussions on the subject. Tasks where students got to explore real places or models, get experiences with the whole body and multiple senses, enhanced motivation and resulted in strong positive memories. Earlier, when students with blindness attended special schools, the teachers discovered that students' own experiences and creativity was the best way for them to acquire knowledge that would otherwise have seemed incomprehensible without vision. During exploration with hands, the haptic perception is active, which may have been one of the reasons why the students remembered so well tasks from a long time ago. While haptic perception is active, the muscle, joints, the tactile senses are cooperating, which is important for the perception, according to Johnson. Also, using both gross and fine motor skills is important for perception. That means getting knowledge of the objects and its qualities, all at the same time. Klingenberg discovered in her study from 2013 that difficult concepts in mathematics and geometry were easier to grasp if the students with blindness got to examine geometric forms with multiple senses, using both fine and gross motor skills. In the present study, the students had difficulty remembering tasks that included descriptions of images. Maybe the images were described only by visual qualities that students with blindness do not have any experiences of. Journey Kreuzer observed in her study from 2007 that when students with blindness are given an image as inspiration for a writing assignment, the image is often described to the student from a visual perspective, in words with qualities for the visual sense. Kreuzer also noted that text written by students with blindness contained fewer descriptive words than the sighted peers' text. Kreuzer infers that our visual perspective is dominant in the language we use. Tasks made by molding material, like clay or plaster, were well remembered by the students. Working with molding material activate a variety of receptors when large parts of the skin become active. Even the linguistic areas of the brain is affected positively when working with modeling in clay, according to Erickson, 1998, who refers to a scientist named Heller. All the tasks that resulted in strong positive memories were created in common with others. The joint creation was such a strong incitement that one student painted even though the task wasn't really rewarding to her. The students really wanted to work with the same tasks at the same time as their peers. Yet they chose to do the actual work individually, as none of them had any good experiences from teamwork. Teamwork during art lessons is demanding when it comes to students with blindness. Vision is so fast compared to the tactile sense, and vision is the dominating sense. It might not be obvious to those in the team what needs to be verbalized or how to do that. Students and teachers in my study mentioned filmmaking as such an example of teamwork. One student appreciated working with dialects as part of the filmmaking. Working with dialects meant no demands on her vision. Instead, she could focus on her auditory senses. The teachers noted that discussions as part of teamwork functioned well, and one student enjoyed discussions because he learned a lot from them. Several students had positive memories of activities that created a clearer idea of the surroundings and of their classmates. One of them told me that she got like a mental picture of peers she had been close to for years. Slide 8. My conclusions from the study are these. The school management needs to understand that all teachers have to get further teacher training for the education of students with visual impairment, and that there will be consequences for the students' learning, self-esteem, and level of inclusion if the teachers do not get appropriate further training. Teachers need to plan open tasks with different solutions, and all students in the group should use tactile and three-dimensional elements in their creative work. A task like filmmaking should have focus on sound effects as well as visual effects. The pedagogues should act as guides and co-creators of the students' inner images. This means that the teacher should assume the role as the student's interpreter, socially and academically. Focus needs to be more on the qualities of the other senses than vision, theoretically as well as practically. Pictures need to be described with more words related to other senses than vision, for example, the tactile and the auditory senses. The student needs to perceive an experience with her senses at the same time as she gets new knowledge of an object, a picture, or a place. The students need to acquire knowledge through interdisciplinary subject work, especially concepts that might be hard to understand without vision. And finally, the teacher needs to translate the contents in the syllabus to give knowledge not only through vision. For example, what is a shadow? What is color? What is a photograph? Slide 9. Future research. It would be interesting to find out how the other students in a class would experience tasks with more focus on other senses than the visual. And I think that more research is needed on students with visual impairment and their experiences of art. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. I see we're making excellent time, so there is plenty of time for questions, and we'll still be early for the coffee. So maybe there are some questions? Everybody wants the coffee. Can I ask one thing? I'm thinking that since it's schools, a lot of what is done is probably bound, so to say, by the syllabus.
Yes.
How much, I mean, is there really a need maybe to change the syllabus a bit so that it becomes more inclusive?
That is interesting. That is something to look into, I think.
No other questions? There was a question.
Jag undrar ju hur RC-syn har möjligheter att implementera det synsättet som det är frågan om för att man ska kunna se konst som någonting som är möjligt för personer med synnedsättning.
So now this is kind of a challenge to translate. Say again.
I want Anneli to explain how she managed to transfer this knowledge to the schools and to the because there are individuals sitting in very outspread in Sweden and how do you do? Tell us about the kurserna.
Yes,
courses.
Yes, we have courses on resource and tuition. You're very good. So the teachers comes there and we have courses for 6 days. But the courses, they have to choose them by themselves. So hopefully they come, but sometimes they do not. The community doesn't always give the money to the schools so they can come.
I think, where is the microphone? There. There was a follow-up.
I will try again in English, in Swinglish. I believe this is a very important question because art and culture is something about the society and the climate and the inclusion, and it's a very big issue. And I think I'm working with the congenitally and acquired deafblind persons, and this is it's important. How do we do to make it possible for them to get in touch with it?
Yes. You mean how do we do to make the schools getting in touch? Yes. Except courses, I don't have any more suggestions, but maybe someone in the public has that.
So it isn't part of the, I mean, there should be something, I would think, in the regular education of teachers. But
yes,
there isn't?
That's a good idea. There isn't.
There
No.
isn't?
No, we don't have that.
Okay.
But that's a good idea.
You'll have to fight.
I think so.
Any more questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And